See, what did you infer from this passage?
सर जो फर्स्ट वाला पार्ट है उसमें तो दे टॉक्ड अबाउट मतलब इन द फर्स्ट पैसेज ऑफ दिस आरसी दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द एलआर सर देन सेकंड में दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द डायोक्सिन थर्ड वाले में सर मुझे ये नहीं समझ में आया कि किस तरीके से ये लोग फिर मतलब उसे आगे कैसे ये लोग मतलब आपस में लड़ रहे हैं झगड़ रहे हैं मतलब कैसे मतलब देखो सर ये वाला पैराग्राफ है फोर्थ पैराग्राफ इसमें व्हाई आर दे टॉकिंग अबाउट क्लोरीन जब ये पहले इन्होंने एलआर के बारे में बात की है सेकंड उसमें दे आर टॉकिंग अबाउट डाइऑक्सिन और फिर सडनली एकदम क्लोरीन पे आ गए हैं
अरे these are, let me tell you, these are some of the examples, you know, they like suppose I am telling you about your preparation about LRDI, right? And I am saying you if you won't be preparing good, if you won't be solving a number of sets in LRDI, obviously it will be toxic for you. When I am talking about this, I am giving you one example, right? The example of what? One guy was there, he wasn't solving LID sheets, he succumbed to the fate, right? Simultaneously, I'll be doing, some other guy will be telling what? He will be telling, no, but it's not necessary to give mocks. It's not necessary. I have seen many candidates who haven't given any mocks, who have given only n number of mocks, limited number of mocks, but they have succeeded too. Right? So there are no proven ways to prove that giving mocks are important. Obviously, it's important, but if it's so much important, if it keeps so much importance, nowhere it's discussed. That guy with contradictory opinion is trying to say this, right? So examples of some of the like when the author is talking about the dioxins, right? So the author is saying that the dioxin is very dangerous thing. But simultaneously, what he is saying, that dioxins are found in mother's breasts too. They are feeding the children. And as soon as they said this, they contradict their own opinion. Okay. And that's why in the last sentence it's written that kids are running around unvaccinated. It's the same when a mother worries about toxic chemicals and yet her kids are running around unvaccinated and without bicycle helmets. That shows that you are curious about your children. One side you are showing curiosity to save them, other side you are not protecting them, and these are both contradictory opinions. And that's why any valid conclusion is not possible yet. There are some scientific theories, there are some scientific experiments that's going on, but still nothing is proven till date.
अच्छा.
Got it? So this is so. हाँ सुनो अब मैं आता हूँ. We'll be starting from the first paragraph. No one is eager to touch off the kind of hysteria that preceded the government's decision to move against LR. What's the meaning of hysteria?
Sir, excitement.
Sudden arousal of something, right? Sudden arousal of something, like it might be some fear, it might be any contradictory opinion on which, like right now the incident of Nupur was going on, right? So when that incident was going on, that's a sudden arousal of something. That contradictory opinion came from Nupur and everybody started talking about it, right? So the government has taken a sudden decision to move against LR, but no one is trying to touch that topic. Well, the growth regulator once used by apple growers. Now it's about LR. When celebrities like Meryl Streep spoke out against LR and the press fanned public fears, some schools and parents rushed to pluck apples out of the mouth of children. Right? That means that when somebody started talking about LR, right, somebody started talking about the contradictory opinion of Nupur that was given by in one of her statement, everybody became very much vocal. Similarly, all the mothers are becoming vocal to save their children. They are just going to pluck something out of their mouth. How do you feel? Like they are trying to showcase their parental care to them. Yet all this has happened before scientists had reached any consensus about LR's danger. And this is something which has not been proven yet, but still the people became violent. I'm just taking the parallel example of Nupur and I'm letting you explain through that. right? Though the opinion that Nupur gave, the statement that Nupur gave, it wasn't proven what psychology behind that statement was. But many communities became vocal about it. They started pelting on police, right? So something that's danger is not proven, but still people are becoming vocal about it. And while in other situation, when the hysteria about when the government decided to move against LR, people are not getting vocal. Cool.
Yes.
Okay, यहाँ तक समझ आ गया?
Yes.
Rhetoric about dioxin may push the same kind of emotional buttons. Now the author is talking about some other example, that is dioxin, right? He is talking about the chemicals become relatively concentrated in fat-rich foods, including human breast milks. Scientists estimate that a substantial fraction of an individual's lifetime burden of dioxin, as much as 12%, is accumulated during the first year of life. So one side you are talking about the dangerous effects of dioxin, whereas scientists have proved, when scientists suggest some theory that in the initial 1 year only they are getting 12% of dioxin from that breast milk that they are fed from their mothers. Nonetheless, the benefits of breastfeeding infants, the EPA and most everyone else would worry far outweigh the hazards. And why are it being ignored? It is being ignored just because though it's considered as one of the hazards, but simultaneously it has many good effects. Though one side effect is that it has some hazard in the form of dioxin that's toxic, but it has many fruitful elements present too, and that are very useful for children, and that's why it's not becoming that much of a toxic material to talk about. Yeah.
Yes.
Now environmentalists say dioxin and scores of other chemicals pose a threat to human fertility, as scary an issue as any policy makers have faced. Now environmentalists have all one opinion, that it pose a threat to human fertility, right? And you asked about why he is talking suddenly, why he is talking about chlorine compound now, right? So here see that say dioxin and scores of other chemicals. He is talking about other chemicals in the initial paragraph and then introduce another chemical, that is chlorine compound. Got it? And it wants to showcase the threat of that on human fertility, right? About the dioxin. Clear?
Yes.
But in the absence of conclusive evidence, what are policymakers to do? What measures can they take to handle a problem whose magnitude is unknown? Predictably, attempts to whipsaw public opinion have already begun. What is the meaning of whipsaw?
Sir, जगाना मतलब to whipsaw public opinion.
Yeah, kind of. Okay, suppress someone's opinion or means digress from someone's opinion.
Yeah.
Right? Like if you have some opinion, I am trying to suppress that opinion, or I am trying to divert that opinion in some other way.
Right.
Got it? So if you don't have any conclusive evidence, suppose in case of COVID, in the initial phase of COVID, people didn't have, in the month of December 2019, people didn't have much idea about what COVID was. Though the government was having some idea that it might be fatal to people, still policymakers couldn't do anything because there were no such evidences. And if you don't have evidences, you keep calm, you remain silent. And what you do, suppose if there is another public opinion that's coming out, no, it's COVID is dangerous, COVID is spreading in China very much, what the policymakers will do? Policymakers will try to suppress the opinion because they haven't gone to any conclusive evidence yet. Cool?
Yes.
Corporate lobbyists urge that action be put on hold until science resolves the unanswered questions. Until some questions are answered, that should be put on hold. None of the actions should be taken against them. Environmentalists argue that evidence for harm is too strong to permit delay. Now what environmentalists are arguing about that dioxin, that there are some evidence that suggests that dioxin is harmful. And that's why if government is not permitting to delay, if government is not permitting to oppose it, it's too much of a delay. This issue is especially tough because the chemicals under scrutiny are found almost everywhere. Now they are talking about other chemicals. They are talking about they pose some threat. And the environmentalists are with some opinion that they should be banned completely. But as government has not reached to any complete evidence, concrete evidences, they are trying to suppress that. And that's because if they will be taking any actions, those chemicals are found everywhere, right? So they can't suddenly neglect those chemicals. Clear?
Yes.
Okay. Now come to this paragraph. Since many of them contain chlorine or are byproduct of processes. Now this chlorine that you have talked about, this is coming from these chemicals under scrutiny. Right? In these chemicals that are under scrutiny, most of them contain chlorine or are byproducts of processes involving chlorine compounds. The environmental group Greenpeace has demanded a ban on all industrial use of chlorine. Now see, there are some side effects of chlorine. And what environmentalists are doing? They are suggesting that completely ban the chlorine used items in industrial purposes. The proposal seems appealingly simple, but it would be economically wrenching for companies and consumers alike. Obviously, chlorine is cheap. Obviously, chlorine is something that's found everywhere. If you will be suddenly eliminating the usage of chlorine, it might create chaos. Clear? With the escalating rhetoric, many professionals in the risk assessment business are worried that once again, emotion rather than common sense will drive the political process. The author has opinion that every time any such instance is created, the emotions take over. See the example of that Nupur's case. Emotions took over the original common sense of people. They started pelting on police. And this has driven a political process. Try to correlate the passages that you are studying now, Aditi. Try to correlate with some examples so that you can relate it good. Right? There is no free lunch. Observe Tammy Tanks, a public health specialist at Duke University. When someone spends money in one place, that money is not available to spend on other things. She and her colleagues have calculated that tuberculosis treatment can extend a person's life by a year for less than $10,000. Surely a reasonable price tag. But by contrast, extending a life by a year through asbestos removal costs nearly $2 million. Now, she is trying to create an example of some treatment that the tuberculosis treatment, right? Tuberculosis treatment is why it is so much cheaper in comparison to that with asbestos removal. Why is it cheaper? It's cheaper because the fatal risk is greater in tuberculosis. So supply demand is more to remove that. And once demand is more, it might be easy because it will be available for you. But as asbestos removal is not so common in people, because why it's not common? Because relatively few people would die if the asbestos were left in place. It's costly. That kind of, and they are just giving you this example to showcase that if you are trying to completely ban chemicals like chlorine, have some risk benefit analysis. What are the risks involved? The risks involved are chlorine is found everywhere. It is ubiquitous. And when something is ubiquitous, found everywhere, if you will be completely eradicating it, if you will be completely eliminating it, the other things that will replace is the cost will overshoot. Right? So this is the benefit risk analysis of this. That kind of benefit risk analysis all too rarely informs the decision made by government regulators. As the EPA raises anew the dangers of dioxin, The agency needs to communicate its finding to the public in a calm and clear fashion. Obviously, the dangers of dioxin are known to the environmentalists, so it might be known to the governments too. But once all the findings, all the risk analysis factors comes out about dioxin, then those information should be provided to public in a calm and clear fashion. John Graham, director of Harvard Center for Risk Analysis, suggests that people should strive to keep the perils posed by dioxin in perspective and remember other threats that are more easily averted. Now he is talking about don't focus too much on dioxin. There are many other threats too. And you are getting averted from those threats because your attention isn't drawn towards that. Phantom risks and real risks compete not only for our resources, but also for our attention. Graham observes, it is the same when a mother worries about toxic chemicals and yet her kids are running around unvaccinated and without bicycle helmets. Clear है ये passage का सारा कुछ?
Yes, sir.
It's an easy passage. अब आंसर करते हैं. If it appeared in an article that the author read, he would most probably agree with which of the following statements? Asbestos and radon have caused serious health problems. Have we read about radon? Was there radon given?
No.
Directly eliminated? Right? Dioxin is the foremost threat to human fertility and needs to be addressed in order to prevent serious threat problems. Right? So here it's given that dioxin and scores of other chemicals pose a threat to human fertility. But when he says dioxin is the foremost threat, it makes the sentence extreme. Right? He's not talking about the foremost threat. There are other chemicals too that pose the same danger. He's not trying to compare that. He's not having that intention to compare dioxin with some other chemicals and then come up with a statement that dioxin is more futile towards the human fertility. Right?
Yes.
Okay. Eliminated?
Yes.
Environmental groups and corporate lobbyists often take polarized stances, which eventually are modified by governmental agencies. Now, it is something that author is talking about.
Yes, sir. मतलब
Right?
सर लेकिन इस वाले पॉइंट में एनवायरमेंटल ग्रुप्स एंड कॉर्पोरेट लॉबिस्ट ने बात के बारे में बात तो की है, बट सर ये जो इसके नीचे वाला है कि which eventually are modified by government agencies, ये वाला पार्ट तो मुझे समझ नहीं आया.
When you are trying to suppress the opinion of public, what's that? You are trying to modify that. Here it's given, na? Here it's given, na? Environmentalists are escalating the Greenpeace. The proposal seems appealingly, but many professional businesses.
सर ये इससे ऊपर वाले में 20. हाँ सर ये यहाँ पे कॉर्पोरेट लॉबिस्ट वाला urge that action be put on
hold until science resolves the anan. नहीं ये नहीं है.
अच्छा
ये नहीं है. Wait, I am telling you. Chemicals pose whose magnitude is unknown, so probably attempts to make some. See, yahi line. What measures can they take to handle a problem whose magnitude is unknown? Predictably, attempts to whipsaw public opinion have already begun. Right? So when there is something, when they are talking about dioxin, when they are talking about the threats posed by dioxin, right? What the public is doing, public has a polarized opinion. They go to the news, they read the news, they react to the news. But it might not be true because concrete evidence is not still gotten by the government. And that's why what government is doing, they are trying to take a unbiased opinion. They are trying to take an unbiased side, and that's why they remain real and calm. समझ गई? और रियल एंड काम वाला कहीं पे दिया हुआ था ना? Yes. With the escalating rhetoric, many professionals in the risk assessment business are worried that once again emotion rather than common sense will drive the political process. They are worried about this because they know that the public opinion is always polarized by something, always polarized not on content but on emotion. Got it? But in those
Yes.
circumstances, government has to take a neutral stance, right? Clear है?
ये हाँ सर.
समझ गई? So this is justifiable अभी तक है ना?
हाँ सर.
We will see for another options too. Thorough research and investigation of environmental problems should be performed by the government before any unnecessary hysteria spreads throughout the public. Right? Thorough research and investigation of environmental problems should be performed by the government before any unnecessary hysteria spreads throughout the public. The mayor of a city has decided to ban the use of dioxin by industry. ये तो completely eliminated है. It's talking about one mayor of a city. ठीक है. Now we have. मेरी आवाज आ रही है क्या? अदिति?
Yes सर आ रही है. हाँ सर आ रही
बीच में चली गई थी ना? एक
हाँ.
सेकंड को मेरे को वाईफाई नेटवर्क चेंज करने दो. अभी क्लियर है? अदिति?
हाँ सर क्लियर है.
हाँ. तो हम लोग कहाँ थे? दिख रहा है स्क्रीन?
सर हम इस पे हाँ सी एंड डी वाले पॉइंट मतलब सी पॉइंट हो गया था, डी
हाँ.
पॉइंट डिस्कस करते हैं.
ठीक है. तो ये मेरे को अभी तक में सबसे एप्ट लग रहा है. अभी ए बी सी में है ना? अभी ए बी सी, ए और बी तो डायरेक्टली एलिमिनेट हो गया. मेरा सी पे कंफ्यूजन है. ठीक है. अभी मेरे को ये स्टेटमेंट सही लग रहा है. नाउ वी विल गो टू डी. Thorough research and investigation of environmental problems should be performed by the government before any unnecessary hysteria spreads throughout the public. ये भी सही है ना? This is also true because government had to remain neutral till the time they reach to any conclusions, है ना?
Yes sir.
So now we have the common opinion. Now we have to select between C and D. I'm just 1 second. Recording, is the recording going on? देख लेना recording.
Yes sir, recording is going.
Yeah. So देख लेना बाद में recording. I'm just attempting this as a student like you, right? So now what I have confusion between C and D, right? Now I'll see for each and every word because it was the thorough analysis from the above. Now I'll go for each and every word. Environmentalist groups and corporate lobbyists often take polarized stances. It's true, which eventually are modified by government agencies. Okay, so tell me one thing. Is they are now coming to this statement, which eventually are modified by governmental agencies, right? Is there anything mentioned in when they are taking any environmental decisions? Environmentalists say dioxin and scores of other chemicals pose a threat as scary an issue and any policy makers have faced. But is there anywhere given that whenever environmentalists are taking any action, government is changing that action?
No sir, अभी तक तो नहीं.
कहीं पे दिया हुआ है?
नहीं ना,
See,
तो ऊपर
मैं
या
मैं इसलिए मैंने तुम्हें एज ए स्टूडेंट बताया है ना, मैं सीधा डी ऑप्शन मार्क करके आगे बढ़ जाता है ना, क्योंकि इट्स ट्रू। बट एज ए स्टूडेंट मैं तुमको बता रहा हूँ कि हाउ टू एनालाइज ईच एंड एवरी ऑप्शंस ऑफ योर्स। इन द फर्स्ट glance I thought that this answer is also correct, right? And this answer is also correct. Now I have confusion between two answers. That's the very common thing in CAT. Now I'll go through each and every word of that statement. How to eliminate that? How to eliminate between two sentences? Because polarized opinion, यहाँ तक तो सही है. Polarized stances are taken. Like when environmental groups are saying that dioxins are a threat to the society, ban them. They are trying to showcase some polarized opinion, right? But is there anywhere mentioned that governments are modifying those things, decisions that are taken by environmental groups?
no sir.
No. So C will be eliminated, and option D will be our answer.
ठीक है.
समझ गई?
Yes.
Okay. Now, according to the passage, it is dangerous to react drastically to recently posed health hazards for all of the following reasons, except, according to the passage, it is dangerous to react drastically to recently posed health hazards. If there are any health hazards, you may react to it drastically, but it will be dangerous, except in which circumstances, the author is trying to ask. Proven precautions are overlooked. That's true. If you are saying dioxins are very harmful, but mothers are feeding the breast milk to their children, so they are overlooking that situation. And now if you will be taking any drastic actions, it will be hazardous, right? It will be dangerous because mothers are overlooking that circumstances.
Right.
Clear? So it is true. So it is true. ठीक है? अभी आते हैं public. Okay, so we have 10 more minutes. Public fear leads to irrational action. Is it true?
सर ऊपर उसमें बात तो हुई थी कि वो विप्स ऑफ वाला जो पार्ट था.
Exactly. See, if there are some chaos within the public, and if you are taking drastic, for example, let's take the example of COVID. Right? Government took a drastic step. I'm not talking about COVID. I'm talking about demonetization. Okay. Government took the drastic step of removing all the 1,000 and 500 rupee notes. It created a chaos in the society and public fears that led to the irrational actions. Like they started going to the banks, they started illegally transferring the money, etc., etc. And that's the main instance that the author is also talking about in the passage, that if there will be public fear, there will be chaos in the society, right? So this is also true. Insurance premiums will increase. In the passage, did we get कहीं भी इंश्योरेंस प्रीमियम के बारे में बात किया गया है? नहीं. तो अभी तक मेरा ये है, ठीक है, अभी तक मेरे को सी मिल गया. Now see, economic burdens can occur. Obviously, if he is talking about chlorine, अगर क्लोरीन को अगर तुम हटा देती हो कंप्लीट, जो तुम बहुत इजीली मिल जाते हैं, अगर तुम उसको हटा दोगी, ड्रास्टिक स्टेप लोगी, तो ऑब्वियसली इकोनॉमिक बर्डन आएगा, है ना? इमोशन शुड नॉट. हाँ,
ये जो ये वाला पॉइंट है इकोनॉमिक बर्डन्स, इसको हम लोग कॉर्पोरेट लॉबिस्ट से भी तो मतलब रिलेट करके देख सकते हैं.
हाँ, बिल्कुल देख सकती हो.
ठीक है.
Emotion should not be allowed to overtake common sense. Obviously, it's true, right? The common sense that there is some opinion within the mind of public. Now they are emotionally pumped on those opinions that they have gotten, right? But the government has to take a neutral stance. They cannot take any drastic steps to suppose there is something, there is the fear of let's say lesser job risk, more job risks. The fear of more job risk is there in the society, right? And public have a fearful opinion about that. Now the government won't be taking drastic measures, right? It will create more chaos. It will be dangerous for the society, है ना? मैं तुम्हें पैरेलल एग्जांपल्स लेके समझा रहा हूं तो कि तुम्हें आसानी से समझ में आए. ये क्लियर है? तो टू का डायरेक्ट, टू का तो बहुत इजी था, सी मार के आगे बढ़ जाती।
वही सर, टाइम फर्स्ट वाला गलत हुआ, मैंने फिर सीधे प्राइमरी एम वाले को देखा, उसके बाद सेकंड वाले पे अपने आप ही होपलेस हो गया सिचुएशन कि नहीं
तो
होता
होपलेस क्यों, ये तो आसान देखो जब मैंने अभी
हाँ
तुम्हें बताया है, पैसेज थोड़ा भी टफ लगा क्या?
नहीं, बिल्कुल भी नहीं।
नहीं लगा ना। वही है कि पढ़ने का तरीका होना चाहिए। व्हेन देयर इज अ कॉमा टेक अ पॉज, व्हेन देयर इज अ फुल स्टॉप टेक अ पॉज ऑफ 2-3 सेकंड्स। इस तरह से पढ़ोगी ना, इट विल बी इजी फॉर यू। Now coming to this, in the context of the passage, the author uses the term whipsaw public opinion, right? Whipsaw public opinion, changing the needs of the community. Is the government trying to change the need of the community? No.
तो सर
Convincing citizens to accept a polarized viewpoint on health hazards. It might be true.
might be
That's what government is talking about. If dioxin is having some drastic threats for the society, there are some positive points too. So what the author is opining about, the author is opining about have that risk analysis factor done, risk assessment, do the risk assessment first. So he's trying to talk about the polarized circumstances, polarized viewpoint, try to measure the risks, try to measure the benefits, and then analyze both of them and take your action then, right? So he's trying to have that polarized opinion, ठीक है ना? Offering a variety of alternative for health hazards. No,
नहीं, अभी तक तो ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं
there
है,
is
क्योंकि
no
गवर्नमेंट
varieties of
न्यू बोल रही है।
if dioxin is let's say dioxin is a health hazard, there is no alternative to it that is being talked about, right? Acting irrationally in response to government policy, now this is completely absurd. Nowhere government is the author is trying to talk about कि अगर government ने कोई decision लिया तोड़फोड़ मचा दो, ऐसा कहीं है क्या?
नहीं सर।
तो acting irrationally won't be good option. Convincing citizens to take decisions lacking in common sense, now it is completely absurd, right? कोई भी ये नहीं बोलेगा ना कि कॉमन सेंस को हटा दो अपने डिसीजन से, ऐसे डिसीजंस लो जिसमें कॉमन सेंस है ही नहीं, कोई बोलेगा?
नहीं सर, लेकिन इसमें मैंने ई ही मार्क किया था
क्यों?
लास्ट वाला।
क्यों?
वही सर, वो मैंने ना मतलब गलत समझा विप्सॉ का, और उसकी वजह से फिर वो मैंने तो मार्क किया।
अभी ठीक है ना?
हाँ अभी ठीक है।
चलो, primary aim of the passage is to strongly discourage the use of dioxin. No, dioxin has some good benefits too, right? So you can not discourage to use dioxin. To carry out a cost benefit analysis of the continued use of dioxin, the author is not talking about only dioxin, the author is talking about all the compounds that are present in the society, like chlorine is there, everything is there. If you are trying to eliminate it, the usage of it from the society, try to have that risk benefit factor analysis, right? So that's not the primary aim of our passage. To argue that the problem associated with dioxin may have been overestimated. Yes, this is being talked about, right? Because he is talking about that some people are exaggerating the things, exaggerating the health hazards being caused by dioxins, right? And they are overestimating the things just because dioxin is fruitful too. You cannot completely eradicate the usage of dioxin. So till now, this is what we can trust upon, this option that we can trust upon. To assert that the opponents of the use of dioxin are exaggerating the problem for their own benefit. Now this is nowhere talked about suppose any company is manufacturing dioxin, that company is trying to suppose any company is the rival of dioxin, is there anywhere mentioned that company opposing the usage of dioxin are using it for their own advantage? Is it discussed anywhere?
No sir।
No. To call for a ban on use of all dioxins, it's not the primary aim of passage. the author has opined somewhere that you may think about banning the usage of all dioxins, but simultaneously the author has one more opinion that have that risk assessment factor too. He is not strictly saying going for the ban on the use of dioxin. Clear? आसान था? हाँ, एक सेकंड ये शेयरिंग बंद कर दो. आसान था ना?
हाँ सर.
ठीक है.
वो गलती कर रखी थी जो होनी नहीं चाहिए.
हाँ, ये आसान पैसेज था, है ना? इसके चार के चारों सही होने चाहिए. ठीक है.
अच्छा सर, मुझे एक बात बताइए, जैसे मतलब ऊपर वाले जो पैसेजेस होते हैं,
थोड़ा
मेरा
जल्दी.
ना जो टाइम, हाँ मेरा जो सर टाइम जा रहा है ना, वो मेरा उसमें जा रहा है कि मैं ना वो लिखने लगती हूँ.
चलो वो मैं तुमको बाद में बताता हूँ. ठीक है, अभी दिख रहा है स्क्रीन?
हाँ.
ठीक है. ये देखो, अभी आई एम रीडिंग वन बुक. ठीक है ना? दैट बुक इज एटीट्यूड इज एवरीथिंग. ठीक है.
एक मिनट सर, अब भी नहीं दिखाई दे रहा है. अभी तो वही वाला प्राइमरी एम ऑफ द पैसेज ही खोल रखा है.
अभी
नहीं.
रुक जाओ. अभी
हाँ, अब दिखाई दे रहा है.
दिख रहा है ना? ठीक है. आई एम रीडिंग दिस बुक. दिस इज अ वेरी गुड बुक. ठीक है. See, read these 6 lines that I have marked as you.
The person with a negative attitude dwells on problems. The person with a positive attitude concentrates on solutions.